I do like this particular valley and that house up there. What a nice view. It's in the middle of nowhere. Not really, but it's very remote comparatively. Anyway, this is a nice valley. Love it. Check it out. It's New Year's Eve, 31st of December. Tomorrow is New Year's Day, 2026. And not much has changed. I feel like I was listening to New Year's fireworks a couple of days ago. I mean, the year just went by so fast. It's scary. Really, really bothers me. But anyway, here we are. Another number, 2026. Mañana. Well, hello. It's New Year's Eve 2025. The ball is going to fall in Times Square. There will be celebrations all over the place. We like to celebrate. That's nice. Here there will be fireworks all over the place. Every single village all around here will be shooting fireworks. So as you stand on these hills here in Leiria, in the Silver Coast region, you'll just see fireworks going off all around you, 360 degrees, because the big towns and the small towns and the little villages all have fireworks. So it's really festive and fun, and some places have bands and little parties all over the place, and it's very intimate. It's not a million people in Times Square cluster fucking around listening to dozens and dozens of acts, because America is, you know, the number one spectacle producer in the world, Uncle Sam, and you know, everything has to be big and elaborate and complex and exciting and over the top and number one and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. I've never gone to Times Square or anything like that. I don't like it. So when I was in Japan, I'd go to Tamagawa River or something like that, or Kamakura Beach, and I'd watch the fireworks, Enoshima, something like that. In Hong Kong, there are a number of places you can go without being in the cluster to see the big fireworks, and Hong Kong is a huge spectacle, whether you're on the Peak or in Kowloon, Golong, watching the fireworks. It's really exciting. But generally, I don't go out to the big crowded places. I never have really, but especially now, while I'm getting up there. Anyway, I was thinking about ontologies and epistemologies and philosophies and identities and stories and all these things, context dependent, complex social constructs, concepts, ideas, and so on and so forth. And I've said for a long time, and it's not just because I picked up a book years ago at an airport called Sapiens or whatever. People have been writing about language and stories, complex cognition, how we learn language from all different points of view, like psychology, you know, how do we learn language, Pavlov's dog, emotion, motion, you moved me, these kind of things. You know, these things that trigger our emotions and our endocrine system and make us want to do things, to feel things. And for us, because of complex cognition, because of language and stories, what we believe is very powerful, our beliefs, and they can make us do all kinds of things, you know? And they can get us in trouble, or they can invent wonderful stuff. But anyway, a whole bunch of people are going to run to the cluster, and so the security is tight. You're going to have a lot of security to keep the terrorists at bay and whatnot, which is good. But anyway, human beings are slaves to stories, pardon the language. We are subservient to stories. To each his own story, or to each their own story, as it were. You know, it's going to be 2026 and there's still people in the southern United States and Alabama and Mississippi and so on that are romantic about the Confederacy. And yes, of course, that region has a history, pre-Civil War and post. And it's good to know the history and all that. But, you know, it was driven by certain ideas and stories, and today it's driven by the same ideas and stories. So you have militias down there who are worried about the Marxists taking over America and wrecking everything. And then you have Marxist or left-wing militias who are worried about defending themselves from right-wing militias. And they're all driven by stories, by ideas. And there are ways to get to good ideas, or the truth, or more truthy things than less truthy things. For example, one truth I have no problem with is knowing that I'm going to die someday, and that all people die someday. And, you know, I have the experience to believe that's true, and I have knowledge to believe that's true, and there's multiple lines of evidence that I can look at that lead me to acknowledging the truth of that statement and so on. There are other things that are less true, like, you know, what's the best way to govern a society? And who knows? But since I'm deep in the weeds of this predicament world, where all of the people that I follow in the overshoot, environmental movements, collapse, understanding civilizational collapse, history, science, and so on. People who are concerned about the future, about ecocide, genocide, violence, war. People who are concerned about pollution, you know, and destruction of habitat and the sixth extinction. What we call the meta-crisis or the polycrisis, all these kinds of people who have done lots of work for many, many years, trying to understand it, what's really happening, are there concerns that we should think about? Do we have to change the way we live our lives and all that kind of thing? And many of them come to the conclusion that, you know, for many reasons I can't go into here because I want to keep this relatively short, human beings just cannot be good at scale, even though we think everything's good because we like buying stuff, we like making money, we like having fun, we like traveling, we like all the things we like, especially the modern conveniences. Because if you want to go to a village in Spain and rebuild it and get a bunch of people to live in it, you're going to work in ways that you're not accustomed to working. If you work in an office and make a lot of money working in an office, the kind of work you're going to do in the village is meaner work, tougher work. So you can't romanticize that. It is what it is. And you either decide you want to live more simply, like off-grid people do, or not. You know, I want to chop wood, I want to have a gravity shower, I want to get my water from the river or from a well, I want to grow my own food, I want to, on and on and on. That's a lot of work. That's what you do every day. You survive, you try to make things comfortable, maybe you have some fun with a neighbor or something like that. In our world, we have access to all kinds of entertainment, as you know, music and fun things and bread and circuses, you know. We have a lot of it. And the global civilization likes it. Everybody wants more of it. And so a guy commented when I was talking about immigration on my last video. So silly, I get no comments. But when someone comments, they say, you've spent a shit ton of energy trying not to understand. I would say back to that person, why don't you be specific? If you have something to say, say it. Tell me what you're thinking. Let me know what you believe. Let me know the stories that you adhere to. Are they more truthful than what I'm saying? You can look at genetic evidence, you can look at archaeological evidence, you can look at cultural background evidence like books and parchments and codex and, you know, scrolls and, you know, rusty swords and all kind. There's so many different lines of evidence that you can look at to understand human migration, and we have more lines of evidence every day. You know, there was a time when we didn't have radiocarbon dating, and we couldn't, you know, just pump out DNA analysis in a heartbeat. Took us a while to figure all that stuff out, but we have it now. You can either believe that it's contains accurate data, accurate information, or you can choose to say it's bullshit. That's up to you. And don't complain about postmodernism of the ilk that you hate if that's what you're going to do, because you're just saying that my reality is solipsistic. My reality is trumps all other realities. I want to believe what I want to believe, and that's that. And that's the way people are. We have a long history of conflict and migration, replacements. I hate to be flippant, but yes, it's true. To a certain degree, in professional sports in the United States, the white man has already been replaced. I don't care. I think that's fine. I don't have a problem. I'm not a racialist, a racist. I'm not concerned with race. I know from my DNA profile, more or less, where my people came from back in the day, where they migrated to. You know, you look at the map and you see these Northern Europe and Southern Europe. I have some traces in Portugal. I have traces in Scandinavia and Germany and France. A lot in Ireland and Northern England, Scotland. That's primarily my thing. But, you know, these people have changed over time. You can see it on the DNA map, right? And they have so much information on this stuff. But anyway, never mind. The comment is, I'm making an effort not to understand. Well, I think I probably do understand that person's perspective and argument better than he understands or she understands mine. That's just my intuition. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But anybody's welcome to really crank it out on the YouTube. If somebody did have a comment, they could write paragraphs. There's no character limit, or not much of a character limit. You can write a few paragraphs. You can include links, and so on and so forth. If you have something to say, say it. Like this documentary about the South that this Dutch documentarian did, Southern American, U.S. American identities. The one guy he was interviewing had a really hard time stating what the modern conspiracy was, and it took him a long time thinking about it to try to come out with something. And basically, he said, "You have these people in the country that want to destroy the country and the Constitution, and replace it with a Marxist state." Okay. But you know what he was hiding there, don't you? You can kind of figure it out. White Christian ethno-state. But anyway, it's hard to just come out and say that. And whatever the means testing is, or the purity testing you'd have to do for your community, there is the Back to the Land movement that I keep talking about. Anyway, you have overshoot, collapse, limits to growth and all this kind of stuff. There are solutions, and those solutions could be implemented, or at least we could limit the amount of suffering and pain we're going to have to go through, and our children are going to have to go through in the future if we wanted to. I don't think we will, because story is a powerful technology. Complex cognition is complex, and what we believe, we believe. It sounds about right, you know? If I tell you the truth, but it doesn't sound right to you, you're probably not going to listen anyway. So people are going to continue to believe what they've grown up to believe. They're going to fit into their cultures. They're going to have identities. Stephen Woodford did a breakdown of this debate between Piers Morgan and a student, graduate student. She mopped the floor with him, but he's just so ignorant, Piers Morgan, and stubbornly so, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't even realize how ignorant he is. The question at hand was, toxic masculinity. There's never been any toxic masculinity. And what she was saying is there's a plurality of masculinities. So how medieval samurai would define masculinity would be different from Renaissance, not medieval, Renaissance period, European from some place, right? And these are time and place sensitive concepts, social constructs or definitions, and they change over time. And so you have a place and a time, and then you have a definition of what masculinity is. If you were just talking about sex, maybe, you could simplify things and say, genitalia. We'll just talk about that. That guy has that genitalia, he's masculine. But that's not what we mean, and Piers Morgan knows it. Anyway, she mopped the floor with him. Stephen Woodford did a very good breakdown analysis of that debate. People don't want to think about these complex things, right? If you're having a conversation with somebody and they say, I wonder why divorce is going up in Portugal, you would have to examine that question in many ways to come to some kind of understanding or provisional or answer or whatever. Because you'd have to look at economic reasons, sociocultural reasons, structural reasons. Religion plays a huge role in it. So if you believe that you're going to go to hell if you get a divorce, if a whole bunch of people, the majority of people in a country, and keep in mind Portugal's Catholic, France was Catholic, Italy Catholic, you have these Catholic countries that were very much Catholic. You can debate what the utility to power religion is, Catholicism is, and there's a lot of great arguments and discussions on that point. But anyway, you can control people's beliefs, you can control the people, action, emotion, you can motivate them, you can move them, you can get them to do stuff. And so, it's a complex question. What are some of the reasons why? I don't know. The personal reasons, you'd have to interview the couple and say, what's wrong with your marriage, so on and so forth. In the old days, they would say, well, we have a shitty marriage, but we can't get a divorce, no-fault divorce rules get passed, laws get passed, makes it easier for people, whatever. You have to talk about masculinity. Is there misogyny? Do people beat their women in their country, and so on? You'd have to look at the data, the statistics, the information. You'd have to understand everything to have an answer to that. Is spousal abuse going up? Which spouse is generally the victim of spousal abuse? Is it the man or the woman? Who gets abused more? Stuff like that. The power relationships. Everything's relational, everything's interrelated. You couldn't have language without being able to relate this to that and that to this. When children learn language, they're learning how to relate a sound to an object and other things. And so we have complex cognition, and it's all very mysterious and exciting and useful. And if you can play it, you can play it. There's a technology to playing with technology. There's a skill set or skill sets involved with it. If you're going to use language in a certain way, rhetoric in a certain way, philosophy, arguments, and so on, to get a certain outcome, to do something, to accomplish something, and so on and so forth. You might have special skills in your speaking, in your thinking, critical reasoning, and so on and so forth. So I think in the future, 2026 is going to go by like a bullet past my ear, and hopefully it doesn't hit me. And it'll be much the same. I don't think Ukraine will be resolved. I don't think the Middle East will be at peace. There may be more conflicts. It seems like everybody's getting involved with it now. We're going to invade, cross these borders. We have to understand how these borders got there. We have to learn about colonialism, imperialism, and all that kind of thing. We have to understand these things, but nobody wants to because it means you have to spend time reading, and people don't have time to read and to think, and they don't, if you're lucky enough to go to a university and spend 4 years and you're a good student and you have good instructors, good teachers, good professors, and you do the reading and the work, and you have that discipline, how to learn, basically. I can say I think this, think that, but if I learned that stories was a kind of, maybe metaphorically speaking, technology, when did I learn that? How old was I? How far does it go back? Does it go back to my university days, and then it was reinforced over and over again over the years as I read more things, learned more things, experienced more things, and so on? If you're lucky enough to have a university education and you do well, and maybe you have a postgraduate degree or something like that, and you have critical thinking skills, and you have the discipline, the ability to sit down and relax and read a book, you'll be just a little bit more knowledgeable, and you'll be more prone to wanting to learn new things and whatnot. Other people are very comfortable just, with what their grandma and grandpa taught them, and the stories that they inherited. And that's that. I mean, you're not going to push them over into reading a library of books when they don't have time to do that. The only thing you can do is establish goodwill, have open, honest, friendly conversations with people, try to understand where they're coming from. If you understand them completely, like I get you, I know where you're coming from, then maybe you just want to insert a little bit of information about where you're coming from, and in a nice way, so that they don't think you're the enemy. But at the end of the day, it's like, I really don't have any problem with Northerners. It's just that they want to destroy my way of life down here, so I have to kill them all. You don't need scapegoats. We have enough problems that are structural and systemic and cultural, and we have enough problems with our belief systems and whatnot. We don't need a scapegoat. We don't need to blame the Roma. We don't need to blame the Jews. We don't need to blame the blacks. We don't need to blame the Muslims. We don't need to blame anybody. There's enough blame to go around if you want to focus on that. We are all slaves to, or subservient to our beliefs and to the stories that we adhere to. So I reckon this year we're going to adhere to the stories. How much you learn depends on how well established the habits involved with learning are in you. And if they're well established, you will learn more this year, and you'll know more this next year than you do this year, and that'll be a wonderful adventure for you and a lot of fun. And if you want to adhere to your traditional beliefs, or call it what you will do that, and you will be moved, you will be emotional, you will be reasonable, rational, you will have arguments for what you think and so on, and you will have allies and friends that believe and think the way you do, and life will go on. I wish we could get together and talk across cultures so that we could make things less painful in the future, because they're going to get more painful. And for some of us, if we lose some of the creature comforts, unfortunately, it's going to be very painful for a lot of us, especially Westerners, because we're so spoiled. What am I going to do without my YouTube and my computer and all this shit? So, well, I think if it all went away tomorrow, we'd figure out a way to get on with it, because that's what we'd have to do, right? Circumstances is the most powerful dictator the world has ever known. I hope you learn a lot in 2027. I hope you learn more about how to learn, and stay curious, stay open-minded, stay open-hearted. Do consider and care about those other people around the world that are not like you. Understand that they have feelings too, that they have stories that they believe in, and so on. And I hope we make it to 2027. I hope, and I can hope if I want to. I don't have to think about my faith. But I think if I think about my faith, it makes my faith more real and stronger. If I think about what I believe, it makes my beliefs stronger because I'm trying to be truthy about my beliefs, trying to understand the basis of those beliefs. So I hope that more people get turned on to educating themselves. Piers Morgan will never do that because he makes a good living just talking the way he does to an audience that expects that from him. He works in a corporation where they want to make money, and if he didn't make money for that corporation, he wouldn't be talking on TV to people. So he's got his place in the economy, and as long as he's valuable to, as long as he produces profit, he will have a job. And he doesn't have to worry about being the smartest guy in the room as long as he's articulate and he has the communication skills necessary to do his job. And you look at the young lady, polite lady who was arguing with him, and she's very smart. She was very relaxed and calm about it. She was flabbergasted that he was so ignorant. But what's she gonna say? I mean, Piers Morgan is not an academic, and she is. So I think in a way she kind of felt like, wow, I'm kind of privileged to be able to think the way I do. But what are you going to do with people like Piers? Nothing. They're motivated. They are incentivized to be stupid, and that's unfortunate. But of course, I don't think Piers is ignorant or stupid. I think he's just doesn't know a lot of shit that he could know if he wanted to. But it's not his remit to know those things, so he's not going to know those things. All right, thanks a lot. A happy New Year's Eve. Have fun, stay safe. I hope nothing bad happens anywhere at these celebrations. I pray that that won't happen. I can pray no matter what. It feels good to pray. So I pray for peace and safety for this new year, and I hope you guys have a really happy January 1st all around the world. Boas festas. Happy New Year. Have a great time, and I'll talk to you soon. Take good care. William T. out.